Good afternoon, LSU fans and Oriole fans and Brewer fans. Today, here with season 3 of episode 2, we got here Ben McDonald with us. Ben, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Hey, I'm doing great and appreciate your time for coming on.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. Hey, we're getting close to baseball season. Just
Yeah.
spring training coming fast, and I'll be down in spring training in uniform with the Orioles. So I'm looking forward to that. While I'm down there, I'll do some TV games and some radio games as well to get to know the new guys and see what everybody's been working on. And so I'm looking forward to that. Of course, college baseball just around the corner, and LSU cranks up as everybody else does on the 16th of February. So it's coming quick, man. It's that time of the year.
Yes, that's right. Well, hey, let's start off here with you know what got your with playing baseball here as you were growing up and getting into LSU baseball back there coming out of high school.
Yeah, I was played multiple sports, and I encourage a lot of youngsters to do that. I was a football, basketball, baseball guy from the time I was 5 or 6 years old, and whatever season it was, that's what sport I loved the best. And that went all the way through high school, and I even played a year on the golf team too. So I played football, baseball, basketball, and golf. So I loved them all, man. I didn't really have a favorite. My favorite was whatever particular season that was. And not many people know this, Mark, but I actually went to LSU on a basketball scholarship. So coming out of LSU, or coming out of high school rather, I was a way more highly recruited to play basketball than I was baseball. And so I had, I think, over 100 Division I offers to play college basketball. But the intent was always to play two sports and see which one eventually won out. And so I go to LSU and play for Dale Brown. We make it to the Elite Eight my freshman year in the NCAA tournament. March Madness, got to experience that. And of course, pitching the College World Series my freshman year too with Skip Burton, the legendary college coach at LSU. And so it was a heck of a freshman year for me. But yeah, coming out, I didn't know which one. To be honest, I love basketball better. I think I was probably an ADD kid before there was such thing as ADD, because I like to get up down that court and zip and run. And baseball didn't offer that. And baseball can be at times for a youngster, it could be a lot of standing around. It could be a boring sport. But I was a pitcher and played shortstop and first base, caught a little bit too. And so, yeah, I just loved it, man. And eventually the fastball got up to where it was, 95, 96 miles an hour, and then touched triple digits my junior year. And at that point, I felt like baseball was probably going to be my ticket in professional sports.
Yes, and not only with your connection there to LSU basketball and LSU baseball, but definitely two great legendary coaches there in Dale Brown and Skip Burtman.
Mm. Yeah, you don't know as an 18-year-old kid or a 19-year-old kid how this would affect your life playing for those two guys, right? It takes some maturity. It takes getting a little bit older. I remember there were times I left mad at Coach Bertman. I like this old man, don't know what he's talking about. But I think those are natural things for 18 and 19-year-old kids, right? It's after you have time to reflect back a little bit and you get married, you have kids of your own, you go, wow, I actually got to play for Dale Brown and I played for Skip Bertman. Who gets to do that? Nobody. And so I was fortunate enough to coach 7 years with my daughter, coming up through fast pitch travel softball, and 7 years with my son too. So a lot of the lessons I learned from Dale Brown, Skip Bertman, I've been able to push forward, carry forward to the youth of today. And I enjoyed my time of coaching my kids and coaching, high competitive travel ball, both on the softball and the baseball side. It was a lot of fun for me to see kids develop at a young age and then go up through the ranks and eventually sign scholarships and go play college ball. So that was fun for me to do that. And then, of course, broadcasting came along after that. And I've enjoyed that career too. I've been broadcasting for, I guess, 25 years now. When I started here at LSU doing Cox Sports Television, way before there was the SEC network and way before college baseball was popular,
Right.
on TV. And so I've been very fortunate in a lot of ways to have, if you will, somebody said the other day, two different careers. I guess that's kind of what it's been. It's been a baseball career of actually playing and a sports career, and now a broadcasting career. So I'm thankful for that. I've been very fortunate.
Yes, and then coming out of LSU there in '89, being the number one pick there for the Orioles there, and
Yeah.
at the time they've always been in Sarasota for spring training, but at the time they played at Memorial Stadium there in Baltimore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And look, everybody said, "Oh, it's an old place," but for me, I mean, for a 21-year-old kid coming out of college, because I didn't spend much time in the minor leagues. I got drafted in '89, as you said. I signed in '89. I was in the big leagues in '89. And so I thought it was the greatest thing in the world, Memorial Stadium. I was like, "This is awesome! It's the big leagues." How could you not get excited about this? But wow, when Camden Yards came along, it was, and in my opinion, still is one of the most beautiful ballparks in all of Major League Baseball. Yes, there's a lot newer ballparks out there, and there's bigger ballparks and smaller ballparks, but the way Camden Yards is set back by the warehouse in downtown, it's just a beautiful, beautiful ballpark. Some 30 years later, so really, really cool to see that and be a part of that. And of course, the renovations, pushing the left field wall back. I'm like, where was those dimensions when I played at Camden Yards? I could have used that out in left field, because it's always been a hitter's ballpark. We know that. I mean, it's always allowed some of the most home runs in baseball, the most runs per game. But now I feel like it's I would say more fair now. Like it's big out in left field now. Now it still carries well to center and the right field and all that stuff, but I would call it a fair ballpark. Now, matter of fact, I think I saw a number where it yielded the ninth most runs in baseball last year, or the ninth fewest runs, I should say, in baseball last year, versus towards the top in every other year as far as runs per game. So it's fair now. I think it's going to benefit the Orioles in a lot of ways. I think they'll be able to attract free agent pitchers in there in the future, where nobody really wanted to come pitch in Baltimore, because, I mean, it was a tough place to pitch, right? And so nobody wanted to see their ERAs inflated like they were, because it was a tough place to pitch for many, many years. I'll tell you a funny story. I remember in '92, we opened that ballpark, and me and
Yeah.
Messina and Sutcliffe are sitting on the bench, and we're watching the game, and we're looking, it's April and it's cold out, wind's blowing in like it does out of the north, and we look at each other and go, this ballpark, it's short. It's 364 left center, but ball doesn't carry real well. It's going to be okay to pitch in. Boy, were we wrong. I mean, by the time May rolled around in June and it started to heat up in Baltimore, and that wind turned around and started blowing out toward left center field, we looked at each other and went, whoa, we were wrong. And so, but it is what it is. You pitch to your ballpark. Everybody's got to play in it. And so it just makes you have to change some things. I had to change some things. I remember Dick Bosman came to me the first year at the All-Star break in '92 and goes, "Hey, big guy, we got to keep the ball down more. Like, you got to throw more two-seam fastballs. You're getting up too many home runs." And so you have to change and adapt a little bit now. But I think the ballpark's fair now, and it is just as a beautiful ballpark as it ever was.
Yes, and I had Ryan Ripken on a couple weeks ago, but just talk about playing with Cal, and then definitely being on the Orioles there in '95 and seeing him break Lou Gehrig's record.
Yeah. I always tell people, you're around the game and you see superstars, and Junior was a superstar. And to me, with Ken Griffey Jr. and Derek Jeter and that bunch of players, but to me, he was the most genuine, honest, down to earth superstar in the game. For whatever reason, me and him really got along well. I think he saw a lot of the similarities, and him being from Aberdeen, Maryland, a very small town, me coming from Denham Springs, Louisiana, where you got one high school and 15,000 people. And I think he also saw the pressure that I was under at a very young age, at 21 years old, coming to the big leagues, expected to be the savior. All the write-ups and what people wrote and taught. Frank Robinson telling me my first full spring training that I got to win 20. Like, Frank called me in the office in '91. He goes, "Listen, if we're going to compete for a pennant, you got to win 20 games." I thought he was kidding. I'm looking around going, I don't even know how to pitch at the big league level yet. Like I threw like 50 innings last year. Now you're telling me I got to win 20 ball games, but that's the kind of pressure it was then, And I think Junior realized a lot of the pressure that I went through. Of course, the story, and it's in one of Junior's books, and everybody else does too. Cal Ripken called every pitch I threw back in the '92 season from shortstop. We had a young Chris Hoyles was a catcher. I was trying to feel my way and learn my way in the big leagues. I didn't know what I was doing, because at LSU, Skip Bertman called every pitch I ever threw. I never thought about how to set up a hitter, and this is what you got to do to set up a hitter, and this is what you're looking for. I just saw a fastball away. Yeah, I can do that. Curveball, I got one of those. Forkball, I can do that too. Changeup, yeah, I got one of those. And so I never really thought about how to set up a hitter and what hitters are looking for. So all of a sudden now I don't have the luxury of going to the minor leagues and pitching in front of 600 people and failing and succeeding and learning how to pitch and then come to the big leagues. I went straight to the big leagues. And so now I'm pitching against the best hitters in the entire world. And I remember Junior stuck his head in one game after game, and he looked at me and Chris, and we were talking about the game, and he looked at us and he goes, "You two don't have a clue of what you're doing." And I said, "No, sir, Mr. Ripken, I have no idea what I'm doing at the big league level right now." He said, "Well, this is what we're going to do, you know." And the story goes is he said it stays in this triangle right here between me, Chris Hoyles, and you, Ben. He said if it gets anywhere outside of that, if the manager finds out about it or the pitching coach, I'm done. I'm out of it, you know. And so he would actually, the way he held his glove out at shortstop and the way he kind of touched his hat to Chris Hoyles. And it's funny, I'd be looking in at home plate looking for the sign. I could see Chris Hoyles looking right over my right shoulder. He's looking at Cal and called every pitch. And that was my learning curve. And then after every game, back when players used to drink beer, we'd sit down with a 12 pack of beer after the game, me and Cal and Chris, and we would talk about, okay, this is why I wanted to pitch Dave Winfield like this in the third inning versus how we pitched him in the sixth inning. This is how I wanted to pitch Paul Molitor because this is what he looks for with runners on base versus what he doesn't look for with runners. And that was my learning curve in the big leagues. And he did that for a full year. And then finally in 93 rolled around. He said, "Hey, you're on your own. If you ever need any help, I'm standing right here behind you. You call me in." And there were times when we'd call him in and say, "Hey, what do you think about this situation?" And so he took to me for whatever reason and really helped my maturation process. And then, of course, Rick Sutcliffe came along about that time too, and that really helped as well. So it's funny how older players can help you out, but Junior's as good as it gets, man. He's the salt of the earth. He did it the right way. Obviously, what he did playing in 2,600 plus consecutive games is a milestone that we'll never see even approached again in the game of baseball. And people used to tell me, "He's like, man, you went 3 years without even missing a start." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "That dude has got a locker right next to me. He's played in 15 straight years without missing a game. How can I not go out on the mound and pitch a ball game with my shoulder being sore when this dude's gone out there and answered the bell over 2,000 times?" And so he was an influence for a lot of us, about going out and playing hurt and playing banged up, playing nicked up because your team needed you to go play. And that's how I always used to tell him, I like, "Junior, like, I don't care when you take a day off, just don't take a day off when I'm pitching because I want your butt back there at shortstop catching every ground ball and throwing people out. So
Right, right. And then opportunity came where you played a couple years there with the Brewers.
yeah, I had unfortunately gotten injured with the Orioles, and after I think 7 years, and they non-tendered me. They were worried about the risk of a shoulder issue, and so the Brewers stepped up and offered me a 2-year contract, and I went over there and had a great 96 season with the Brewers, 220 something innings pitched, and won some ball games. And it's a shame because if I put those same numbers up for the Orioles in 96 when they really needed starting pitching, who knows where the Orioles could have gone in 96. And then 97, I got through half the year, a little more than half the year, and the shoulder started to act up again. And the doctor felt like it was time to go in there and fix it and clean it up. And the intention was obviously to get back. It wasn't supposed to be a very serious surgery, but through the rehab process, it just all exploded in there. And we had 2 more surgeries, to make a long story short, trying to come back, and 3 years of rehab, 3 surgeries, and it just never came back. So unfortunately, at 29 years old, 9 years of the big leagues, I'm out of the game. And so that's just part of the game is injuries. My career obviously did not go the way that I had hoped it would go. I always felt like I had the body and the stuff to play 15 years in the big leagues, but injuries were a big part of it. And it's a shame because, at that age, that's kind of when you're starting to really figure it out. When you get into your late 20s, the light bulb's kind of going on. You're going, I think I got this stuff. I mean, you learn every time you go out, but I was really very comfortable at the time about who I was, how I wanted to attack. I had a real game plan of how I wanted to attack hitters. I could adjust on the fly and do different things. And all of a sudden, it's gone. It's over. And so that was some adjustment periods for me. But I tell people all the time, I am thankful for just getting to play big league baseball. I'm thankful for playing, 9 years of big league baseball. It could have happened when I was 20 years old. I wouldn't have never experienced any of that. And so it didn't go the way I wanted it to go, but I don't have any regrets about it. Like I busted it every day to try to be the best I could. It just didn't work out.
Yeah, well, and let's see, before we switch gears and talk about you covering college baseball, I mean, how about your career here with working with Orioles TV there with Masson, and still being involved with the
Yeah.
team that drafted you.
Yeah, it's a blessing for me, and I think the Orioles, I started doing the college stuff many years ago and still doing it. And I think the Orioles saw that and that I was doing pretty well and they invited me. I know it all started about, I guess, 12 or 13 years ago with the Orioles. And they invited, that was me and Brady Anderson and Eddie Murray. And I think Mike Boddicker back. And we were going to kind of do a rotation of 15. It was going to be pre and post a little bit, a little radio, a little bit of TV. And I guess I passed the test. They liked what they saw, and I was able to stay on board, and that's really grown over the last 4 or 5 years from doing 20 or 30 events a year to now the last 4 years. Me and Joe Palmer are splitting the schedule with Masson, so I'm doing about 84 games a year now. And look, man, I love it. It's been tough to watch in the last 4 or 5 years, to be honest. I'm a fan as I'm a broadcaster too. I love the Orioles but there were some lean years in 18, 19, 20, and 21. But God, did the Orioles turn the corner in a big
Yeah.
way last year. And it's so exciting. I'm happy for Mike Elias. And, he has come in and he did exactly what he said he was going to do. He said, I'm going to build from the ground floor up. And I think when he took over the minor league system, it was down towards the bottom, like ranked 25th out of 30 teams. Now it's consensus #1 in all of baseball. He's been able to draft really well. You talk about the 19 draft of Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson and others, a 2020 draft, 21 draft. Like he's done really, really well. He's got his people in there now. Sig Meidel's a huge part of it, obviously, and others, and Eve's a big part of it. And look, they continue to develop, and I'm excited about where they are. They've taken some chances on some players. We all want them to be more aggressive this offseason in the free agent market. I think we all hope for that big, sexy splash of a free agent. But, I see both sides of it. I mean, the Oriole fans have to realize there's a lot of excitement with 81 wins. I mean, or 83 wins. I mean, there's a ton of excitement out there. But you still have to also realize where the Orioles are at. If you look around the diamond, this will be Gunnar Henderson's first full year in the big leagues. It's going to be Adley Rutschman's first full year in the big leagues. You look at the pitching department, Kyle Brash, you hope to be his first full healthy year in the big leagues. Dean Kramer's first full healthy year. Grayson Rodriguez, the big dog, I call him. He's coming this year, but it's going to be his first full year in the big leagues too. And so there's still a lot of learning. There's a learning curve here for those guys. And while I think they can go out and compete every day, I still understand not going out and getting that big splash just yet. But I am excited about the guys they did pick up. You talk about McCann behind home plate. I think Adam Frazier over at second base, a very good bat to ball skills kind of guy. It's funny. This is how good the Orioles have gotten the last couple of years. Ramon Urias, we all know, won the Gold Glove at third base, and for me right now, he doesn't even have a starting spot on the team right now. Like he's going to be a platoon player, I think, with Frazier over at second base, and of course he could play a little short. He might be able to fill in at third if a need be, but he's going to sound like more of a guy that kind of bounces around, utility type player for me. And he won the Gold Glove last year, and so I think all those are going to make the Orioles better. There's no doubt about that. Kyle Gibson brings a lot of experience, a guy that's been around the big leagues a long time. The recent trade, who was a recent trade of the left-hander that just came in? I'm trying to remember his name. The guy that came from Oakland, but he's going to be a big help as well in that starting rotation. So I think the starting rotation is much better. I think it's clearer than what it was last year. The bullpen had a phenomenal year last year. I mean, Jose Bautista, the mountain.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
Dylan Tate was outstanding. CNL Perez was really, really good too. Brian Baker really came on. And now, if that's going to be your starting five, yeah, maybe Tyler Wells all of a sudden gets back into the bullpen mix now. And I tell you what, now you're talking about a bullpen that can really smother you when the Orioles have the lead after 6 innings, and so I'm excited about this year. I think there's going to be some growth, and super excited about Gunnar Henderson and some others. I look and look. There's some other prospects that are going to knock at the door this year. I think Colton Cowser is going to make his big league debut this year. Connor Norby hit 29 jacks last year in the minor league system. I think he's knocking at the door too. Heston Kjerstad, who I thought when he came out of University of Arkansas and was taken really early in the draft a couple of years ago, was the best college hitter I saw all year long that year. Too bad he got myocarditis, and he's missed a lot of time because of that. But he was the MVP of the fall league this year. So bottom line, there's a lot of prospects coming, man. And I saw, what was there, 9 prospects here recently in one poll, top 100 for the Orioles. Nobody had more than that. So the Orioles in a really good place right now. But having said all that, the Yankees got better.
The
The Blue
AL
Jays.
East.
The Blue Jays got better. The Rays got better. The Red Sox kind of, they lost Bogarts, but they signed Devers long term. They picked up some pieces too. I think they're not a whole lot better, but maybe a little bit better. That's the bottom line. And so everybody got good. And so that's the danger is you're playing in the AL East, where it's the best teams in all of baseball there. And so that makes it tough for the Orioles. But let's be honest, it's going to be an exciting year this year for sure. And I'm excited to, there was a time back in 18 and 19, you kind of dreaded going to the ballpark as an announcer because you felt like you were beat before the game even started. But now we go to the ballpark now, and as announcers, we're excited about the young talent. We're excited about the first winning season in some years. We're excited about where this organization can go. And I think the players, and Brandon Hyde deserves a ton of credit for getting the players to believe in themselves. The coaching staff deserves a ton of credit for the development of some marginal players last year and turned them into really nice big leaguers. Let's hope that continues. But I'm super excited to be a part of it, and it's going to be another fun year.
Well, Ben, I grew up a Mets fan, but I definitely, my wife and I, we took our nephews there to a game last summer, and my sister's youngest, appreciate your time meeting with them, but my sister's youngest, he's 9 years old, and he's just ate up with the Orioles ever since he started watching baseball, 4 or 5 years ago. And, my mom was born in Aberdeen. My granddad was stationed at Aberdeen Proving Grounds. So with my sister and now her kids, it's a third generation of Oriole fans in the family.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's one thing I learned about, although I was so far from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, when I went to Baltimore, Maryland as a 21-year-old kid, it really felt like home to me. Like the folks around the Baltimore area are some of the nicest people. They took to me for whatever reason. I enjoyed my time in Baltimore. I always call it my second home. And that's where I grew up. That's where I went from a kid to a man. And so Baltimore's always got a special place in my heart. But I could not believe the passion for baseball from the Baltimore fans when I got there. That was what was amazing to me. And even through the lean years, they came out and they supported the team, and there was always excitement for opening day and always excitement during the year. And that's what I always appreciated. And, that's what I told these players the last couple of years. I said, we're getting, the fans are starting to come back, but I want you guys to be able to experience what I experienced when we opened up Camden Yards in 1992, when there was 46,000 there, not just for one season, for 3 or 4 consecutive seasons. Every game it was a sellout. I said, I want you guys to be able to experience 45,000 fans at Camden Yards, because there's no place like it. Because as you know, the fans sit right on top of the field. There's hardly any. And man, when it's a packed house and it's rocking in Baltimore and things are going well, it is no place like it in all of Major League Baseball. So that's what I was telling Tyler Wells and Kyle Bradish and some of the younger guys is, I want you guys to experience that, because these are the greatest fans in baseball right here. And I love the direction of the team and where it's going.
Right. Yes. And let's see. Also, with your second job, not only with you covering the Orioles, but then you also and you mentioned it earlier how you got your start in broadcasting with covering LSU baseball. But just the popularity here of college baseball and the SEC network and ESPN Plus, and just the excitement when not only, the NCAA tournament comes around, But with streaming games,
Yeah.
they're starting President's Day weekend. I mean, you can see a game on your tablet, TV anytime you want to.
Yeah, I mean, look, the game's changed. I mean, I go back to '89 when I was drafted, and maybe one game a year was on TV. And of course, if you made it to the College World Series, then they were all on TV. But you're right now. I mean, most schools there's roughly 300 D1 schools in college baseball every year, and of course you got the D2s and JCs and NAIs or whatever. But yeah, almost every game. I mean, my son's been playing junior college ball. He finished up last year, but even his games were streamed on TV. We could sit at home and watch the games on TV. And that's what's so cool about it now. And I think that's been a big part of the college game really growing in leaps and bounds from people watching it. Now, if you can't be at the ballpark, like you said, you put your phone on, you get your tablet, you can sit there, and the quality of the picture is just as good as it being on linear network. And so that's what's really cool. So if you follow, big time programs, and even if you don't, you can really keep up with what's going on. And that just, that's a testament to the growth of college baseball. It continues to grow. I love calling the college game. I think it's in its purest form there in a lot of different ways, although it's changed a little bit with the NIL stuff, the transfer, and the players are getting paid a little bit now, which is still kind of hard for me to swallow for an amateur player, but it's where we are now.
Right.
So that piece has changed a little bit, but overall, it's still the purest form of baseball, I think. It's a fun game. You mentioned the SEC. It continues to dominate like it has in college football. I mean, the SEC, look at the preseason rankings the other day. 4 of the top 5 are SEC schools. I think there's 7 of the top 10 are SEC schools. They've won the national championship the last 2 years. Ole Miss won it last year, Mississippi State the year before. So the SEC continues to be the top baseball program out there. And of course, there's a lot of excitement here in the Baton Rouge areas.
Right.
LSU is ranked preseason #1 in every poll that's out there right now. Potentially could have the #1 pick in Dylan Cruz, the star center fielder. It's going to be a really high draft pick as well. So a lot of excitement here in Baton Rouge. And like I said, we'll kick that off on digital. I'll do some digital stuff starting on the 16th when Western Michigan comes to town. LSU kicks off their season in February. So.
Yes, yeah, I had the opportunity of getting Kyle Peterson to come on last year, and there's another former ball player that's involved with covering the college game.
Yeah, I mean, it's me and Kyle and Chris Burke, and this will be my 20th year with ESPN this year. So I've been with them for a while. Kyle's been there a little bit longer than that, probably 22 years, and Berkey's still been there. He's a little bit newer, about 10 years, I guess. But yeah, I mean, we'll be all around the SEC during the regular season. And then, of course, there'll be the SEC tournament. Then there'll be a regional, super regional, and all 3 of us will be at the College World Series too, which is always the greatest place to be. That's what all these teams strive to get to, is to Omaha. Can you get to Omaha, Nebraska? Can you get a chance to play for a national championship? And we were talking about this the other day, and Mark, what a great game the game of baseball is, if you think about it. Like, everybody knew that Georgia was like the best team in football before the season even began, and they won the national championship in football. And basketball is a little bit easier to predict. But I go back to last year, Ole Miss was the 64th team to get into the end. They were the very last team in, and a lot of people thought they didn't even deserve to be in the NCAA tournament, and yet they go and they win the national championship. And that's what separates, for me, baseball from like the other major sports of basketball and football and others. Is never could the 64th best college football team ever win the national championship, and never could the 64th best basketball team that got into the NCAA tournament could ever win the national championship. But it can happen in baseball. And that's why baseball has always been the greatest game in the world. It's a game where, it's evenly matched in some ways. And if a team gets hot, no matter what their talent level is, if they really believe and they get hot, special things can happen. I think Ole Miss was a perfect proof of that last year.
Yes, I mean, I've never met the guy, but baseball is a small world. I grew up in a military family. We live in the Seminole area there in the mid 80s, and my brother and I, were watching Seminole High School, varsity baseball, and the Ole Miss coach was a senior there, and now big time college baseball, and what a run Ole Miss had last year.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Bianco is one of my dear friends, and he came from junior college there in Florida, and then came to LSU and caught me for 2 years at LSU, and caught, I think there was 6 other big leaguers on that team. I think Russ
Mhm.
Springer, Paul Bird, Chad Oj, Kurt Liskanek. He caught and handled the pitching staff really well. And I knew then that Mike was going to be a coach, like most catchers are. If you look around the big
Right.
league level, Bob Melvin and others are all skippers at the major league level. And I felt like Mike would be a manager or head coach somewhere, and he has. And look, he put his time in. He coached under Skip Bertman for about 5 years as an assistant. He learned a lot there. They won 2 or 3 national championships when he was the assistant coach at LSU. Then he goes to Northwestern Louisiana, puts his time in there, gets about 3 years, learns a little bit more, and then eventually makes his way to Ole Miss, where and the funny thing is, there was some rumbling last year when the season began about Mike Bianco at Ole Miss. Like people were rumbling a little bit because they were ranked pretty high to begin the season and did not have a good year at all, but then got hot at the right time. And so he put a lot of questions or a lot of answers or a lot of questions. He answered a lot of them along the way last year, and I'm happy for him, and he deserves it. He's put a lot. I think it's 23 years now at Ole Miss, so good for him.
Yes, and so let's see. So I've seen your videos on Twitter. So I guess with hunting season over, it's time for baseball.
Yeah, it's I tell people all the time, I said there's only 2 seasons for me anymore. There's hunting season and there's baseball season, and one goes right into the other. And hunting for me and the outdoors for me is kind of my getaway time. It's my way of going and recharging the batteries after a long but even when I was a player, that's what I enjoyed to do, to try to get away from everything and go hide out in the woods a little bit and kind of recharge the batteries. And it used to be I had to go kill something every time I went out. Like I was mad at them, but I'm not mad at them anymore. Like I'm okay not ever shooting anything, right? And if the right one comes along, then yeah, I'll take a chance. But it's more about just being and enjoying the outdoors, and it's kind of my happy place where I can be who I am. I can relax a little bit. I can push away from the TV, and so or and the telephone and stuff. I certainly enjoy the outdoors for what it is, and just being outside and enjoying God's creation in a lot of ways. And so it's fun. I've done it for 4 months now. After 100, and I think I did 100 and I don't know 30 or 40 ball games total last year. I was ready to push away a little bit, and now that I've got my fill of the outdoors, I'm kind of ready to push toward baseball season again, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, I'm very fortunate. I own some property about an hour and a half from here, from where I live up in Mississippi, and I spend a lot of my off season up there.
Yes. Well, hey, I know that with having some friends that have some land, I've definitely gone out there a time or two the last few years, and definitely peaceful. With
Yes.
out there.
No doubt, it's relaxing and it's peaceful and it's all those things, that you just want to kind of get away and push away from your job. Because what we do, as you know, is it's go go go. It's a hectic, it's a stressful job. I tell people all the time, I enjoy the heck of it, but it's not for everybody. It's difficult what we do. We're not on tape delay. We don't get to take one and start over. We're live, and when you're live, it's extra pressure, and you got to be good every time you go out. And it's like any other job, you do it 130 times a year. You got to keep the energy level going a little bit. It's still the greatest game of baseball. I think it's the greatest game in the world. But my biggest challenge, I got 2 biggest challenges. People ask me all the time, what are your biggest challenges about doing what you do now? I always tell people 2 things. One, remembering how hard the game is, right? From up there above home plate where I sit now, the
Right.
game looks really easy. It
Right.
is not an easy game. I remember the struggles. I remember a young 21-year-old kid in the big leagues used to go home and bang his head up against the wall, wondering why I couldn't have consistent success at the big league level. I'd be in tears, wanting to do so good and wondering why things are so difficult now. So I remember those days. I know how hard it is for young players. I know what they go through. So I've tried to be very cautious about the way I say things on TV, but I also have to be honest. And I think I get my respect from being honest about what I see on TV. I never try to demean a player, say it in the wrong way. But if a guy screws it up, I'm going to say he screwed it up and he should have made the play. That's where I have to be honest about the game of baseball. But I also remember how difficult the game is. Second thing is, when I talk about baseball, baseball is a very repetitive game, right? The challenge for me is saying the same things over and over every day, but try to say them in a different way, And I've always tried to keep the game simple. When I first started, a lot of people don't know this either. I never graduated from college. Like I went two and a
Mm,
half semesters is all I got in. So I never went to school to be a broadcaster. Skip
right.
Bertman got me into it after I retired from Major League Baseball. He goes, you know what you ought to be doing? You should
But
be a broad. I said, Coach, listen. I don't know anything about broadcast. He said, you'll be great. I'll set it up, and he did. I started working for CST and
right.
whatever. But I tell people all the time, it's remembering how difficult the game was, and I had to learn on the fly about what I do in the broadcasting world. But it's been fun. It's been a challenge for me. I enjoy doing it. But I always try to say things a little bit different way and keep my energy level going. And it's fun now. Like I said, it used to be tough because you were like, okay, how bad are we going to get beat tonight? 3 or 4 years ago. And now we're like, hey, we got a real chance to win this game tonight. We're going to win. So that makes it fun as a broadcaster to see, where the Orioles have come here in recent years and where they are now and the excitement that's back in Baltimore. So, man, I hope to see everybody out at Camden Yards this year. Come by and say hello to me. I'll be there.
Yeah, well, plan on doing that, Ben. Sorry that we ran over, but appreciate your time and talking about being part of LSU, then Orioles and the Brewers, and then broadcasting both college and there with the Orioles. So enjoy your time at Sarasota and at a college stadium, and I'll reach out to you when we hit Camden Yards.
Yeah, my pleasure being with you, man. I enjoyed it and look forward to seeing all go O's, man. Looking forward to seeing all my Orioles people here in Baltimore soon.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. So that's a wrap here for episode 2, listening to Ben McDonald and Go O's.